Hey golf people, on today's video we're going to cover 10 mistakes that you can make when buying golf clubs. I have made all of these mistakes at one point or another, I'm pretty sure, and I hope I can help you avoid these mistakes when you're buying your new set of golf clubs. Now guys, make sure you stick around until the end because the last one on my list could get a little contentious and I'd really love your opinion, so feel free to comment down below on any of these, but definitely stay tuned to the last one. All right, guys, let's get right into it. The first mistake when buying new golf clubs is not trying before buying. I've actually done this one myself. Back when I was a kid, I was 19, 20 years old, and my friends had a couple of sets of Ben Hogan blades. They looked so beautiful. They hit them so well. It had this nice teardrop trajectory, and guess what? I could not hit them for the life of me. It was so difficult, and I spent good money on these clubs, had to resell them for a loss. I think I put them back up on eBay where I had bought them, and it was a huge, huge mistake. A lot of people watch YouTubers like myself and this channel. My channel, I really believe, is a guide for people. It's not the end all be all, and it's not doctrine. You've got to try a number of clubs, and hopefully I can shortlist them for you on this channel. But you've got to try them for yourself and make sure it's the right club for you. So don't ever make that mistake. You always have to try before you buy. The next golf club buying mistake that I see people make a lot is they've got a brand loyalty and they only buy a specific brand. They've got TaylorMade woods and they only want to buy TaylorMade irons and wedges and putters. I think that's a big mistake, and you should always choose the best club and the right club for you and your game, not just because it has a particular logo on it. Even if you've got a 3-wood that you love from a certain manufacturer, maybe it's a Ping G425 like mine, I don't necessarily have a Ping G425 5-wood or hybrid. I actually use a Wilson staff because that's the best club for me, at least from what I've tested. I think that's the best way to build a bag. And the other point here is that you don't need to play a certain brand just because your favorite golfer plays that brand. Those guys get paid to play those clubs. They always have them really spec'd out and customized to their needs anyways. Now, my third mistake is one that I have definitely made in the past, and that is just buying off the rack, not actually going and getting fit, because there are a lot of differences in golf clubs, especially when you get into lie and loft angle, shaft length, shaft material, shaft flex. All of these things need to be taken into consideration. And again, what might work for someone similar to you still might not be the best club for you. So in the end, you've got to try it, you've got to get fit, and you cannot play a club that you just pull right off the rack, very, very rarely at least. Sometimes you get lucky, but more times than not, you're going to get burned. Now, that's not the end of the story when it comes to fitting, and we're gonna discuss this later in the video. I've got another point when it comes to getting fit, and again, you may or may not agree with it, but stay tuned. Before I move on to my fourth point and fourth mistake in this video, I wanna thank the sponsor of this video, which is PXG. And the reason I really do like PXG is the fact that nothing is directly off the rack. They do everything custom over there. You can choose clubs based on your specifications and your desired needs. They've also got a lot of ways to get fit. You could either call PXG directly, talk through the process, or better yet, call PXG and schedule a fitting in your city at one of their studios. Or like me, I actually went to Scottsdale, Arizona and got fit for PXG clubs. PXG's recently released the Gen 5 drivers and irons. As you know, I really liked the Gen 4 driver. I gamed that driver earlier this year. I think they make fantastic clubs, and I'm really excited for these new Gen 5 irons especially. I will be reviewing those on this channel very, very soon. And of course, the drivers and woods and the whole Gen 5 family. You can take a look at everything PXG has to offer on their website, pxg.com. You can also call them at 844-PLAY-PXG or just simply walk in to one of their studios around the country. All right, time for number 4 here on my list, and that is buying clubs for looks rather than performance. I have been guilty of this in the past myself. I see it on Instagram a lot where people are gushing over how beautiful a club looks. Listen, it can look like the best club in the world, but again, if you can't hit that club and if it doesn't do the right things for you in your game, there's not a whole lot of flex there, to be honest. And you're gonna look bad out on the course in front of your friends and coworkers and acquaintances anyways. My Sim 2s are probably the ugliest clubs I've ever played. If I was looking at those on a rack versus something like the P790s or 770s, beautiful Mizuno blades, beautiful PXG clubs, any of these clubs out there on the market, I would not choose Sim 2s. But let me tell you what, those clubs make me look good out on course, and that's what I'm really truly concerned with. Not how the clubs look, but how I look and my game looks and how that scorecard looks at the end of the day. Mistake number 5 on my list is not considering gapping. Not only in your wedges, a lot of times people talk about gapping wedges properly. I personally play a 50, 54, 58 because I like 4 degrees of gap between my wedges. Not only wedges, but really throughout the entire bag. Many clubs today are severely pressed forward in terms of loft. And so if you've been playing golf for a long time, what you consider a 7-iron and what a 7-iron actually is now on most golf racks out there at golf stores could be completely different. And you might be playing clubs like I was, where my hybrid was actually the same degree as my 3-iron. It made no sense to carry a 3-iron and a 3 hybrid at the same degree. So you've really got to take a hard look throughout your entire bag and make sure your gapping is correct and you're playing the right club so that you don't have a 20-yard gap or a 5-yard gap between irons. The next mistake on my list is not considering course conditions when it comes to choosing golf clubs. A lot of people think that every club will work on any type of course, and that's just not true. If you're one of our friends in the UK, you deal with a lot more rain and a lot windier conditions than someone that is one of our friends in Scottsdale, Arizona faces, for instance. It's a completely different set of conditions. Here in Florida, I often have wet, kind of sloppy conditions, and there's a lot of dew in those morning rounds that I play. I need to have a particular bounce with my wedges that works for those conditions, and I need to think about loft and how high I want to hit shots based on conditions. If you're in a windier place, especially if the wind's into you, you're going to want to hit the ball a little lower. If you're mostly playing in a high altitude, then maybe you wouldn't be so concerned with stronger loft because you're already hitting the ball pretty far. If you're playing in a place that's not so windy, you might want to get the ball up a little bit higher so you get those nice soft landings on fast and firm conditions. All of these things need to be taken into account. You need to choose the right clubs for the type of places that you're going to be playing. The next mistake on my club buying list has to do with settling, and oftentimes people are settling because they want a certain club, but maybe they don't have the budget for that club and they settle for the next best thing. In my opinion, it's better to wait and to save up and get the clubs that are really best for you, no matter the price. Even if it takes you an extra year to save up for those clubs, it would be worth it rather than settling and buying a club that is not as good for your game. The other thing in terms of settling is a lot of people have settled recently just because inventory from golf club manufacturers has been disrupted. The supply chain's been disrupted, and so maybe they couldn't get the perfect setup, maybe they couldn't get the shaft they wanted or the particular head that they wanted, and so they settled and then just got something that was similar to that. Again, better you wait and get the club that is best for you rather than settling. 100 times out of 100, you are going to regret that decision. I've done it myself. Don't let it happen to you. The next mistake on my list is switching clubs often just due to boredom. A lot of people get tired of the clubs they're playing. Maybe they start to wear a little bit. They've got a few nicks and scratches and they're like, hey, it's time to change clubs. I'm a huge proponent of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so many people are always trying to fix it, or they're blaming their bad performance on their clubs and constantly searching for a new set of irons. I walk into these used stores, I walk into Play It Again Sports, Edwin Watts near me, they sell used and secondhand clubs, and it's always full, and there's plenty of clubs there that look like they've only been used for a few rounds because someone got bored with it. That is not a good reason to buy clubs because you're bored. Make sure you buy new clubs for the right reasons, because they can help your game or they can perform better on the course for you. Those are reasons to buy clubs, not because you are bored of what you've got. Now, I mentioned used in my last mistake, and so we're gonna follow up on that point. My next mistake here is to not consider a used golf club or maybe a previous generation of a club. Oftentimes there are sales because last year's club needs to be moved off the shelf to make way for this year's club. Manufacturers are putting out clubs almost every single year nowadays, sometimes even multiple times per year, so inventory is always changing. You can get some great deals on the secondhand market, and oftentimes those clubs are just as good or would suit your game a little better than the current model. Now, the 10th mistake on my list is being set in your ways. I think when you go into a fitting or when you're considering buying new clubs, you should consider all of the possibilities that there are, and to not just use a certain type of club because that's what you've always had in your bag. Maybe it's time to switch your 3-iron for a 4 or 5 wood. Maybe you've gotten up there in age and you can't swing an extra stiff club anymore. You need to switch to a stiff or maybe even a regular club. Maybe it's time to even switch to graphite shafts rather than steel shafts. All of these things need to be taken into account. You need to take an inventory of your game at the time of you purchasing clubs, not to think about yourself 20 years ago in the peak of your athleticism. You're just not the same person. Your game has changed. Clubs have evolved. Don't get stuck in your ways. Be open to finding the best club for you. And I know it sounds like I've made that point a lot of times, but it's so very true. Now it's time for a bonus. I think this one could be a little contentious, but hear me out. And again, I'd love to hear all of your comments down below on this, as well as all of the points we've covered. So the bonus mistake here is to buy whatever you get fitted for. And here's what I mean. A lot of times you go to a fitting and maybe you're not swinging it your best, or you're just having an off day. People get fitted for a particular club, they go and buy those clubs, and then they don't perform very well for them out on course. Well, of course they won't, because you weren't performing your best when you tried those clubs. If you don't feel like you're swinging your best during a fitting, it's better you stop, or it's better you go back again for a second fitting when you're feeling like you're swinging a little bit better. It's so important. The unfortunate fact of the matter is, oftentimes pros rush people through the fitting process because they have time considerations. Maybe they've got another fitting right behind you. And so people don't take the right amount of shots. They don't really dial in their swing before they get fit, and then they're stuck with a set of clubs that really doesn't suit them as well as they possibly could. So if you are getting fit, you're not feeling up to it, you don't feel like you're swinging your best, it's okay to come back for another fitting and not buy exactly what you've been fit for on that day. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this one as much as I enjoyed making it. If you like this one, you're gonna like this video here. We had some fun, and I ranked golf club brands from my favorites to my least favorites, just my opinion, but we had a lot of fun. I think you'll like it, so check that video out. I'll catch you back here very soon, another edition of Let's Play Through.